Hey everyone, welcome to the LIBERcast episode 138. It's been an incredible experience, um, and I want to show my gratitude to everyone who has been involved in it and the people who are supporting the LIBERcast by sharing and watching the stuff and listening what I have to say and what my guest had to say. And it's very important because what we're doing is trying to inverse this incredible and destructive demise that we chose for ourselves. So thank you so much for being there. Um, Here we go. Like usual, I'm gonna promote the onegreatworknetwork.com. This is a place where content creators who have things in common join up, and we have an incredible bunch of content creators, and there's new ones from time to time. So go check that. There's a lot of brilliant people. There are great presentation, great works. So there's a lot of them. So I'm not gonna waste any second to not to introduce Mark Passio for this important conversation. So thank you, Mark, for being there today, and thank you for your time and your work.
Fred, thank you so much for having me on LibreCast today. I appreciate it.
So for the people who don't know you, the newcomers on the Libercast, and just quickly go over who you are and what is your work.
I'm an independent researcher and public speaker and presenter from the Philadelphia area in the United States. And my main background was in the world of the occult. And I specifically went into dark occultism and subsequently, after learning who was really in control of the network that is all over the world of dark occultism and how they're utilizing that knowledge. I had a crisis in conscience back, I guess you could say, in my late 20s or mid 20s to late 20s, and decided that I was going to become a whistleblower about the world of dark occultism, specifically Satanism. And I've been doing that ever since through my website and podcast, What on Earth is Happening. Whatonearthishappening.com is the website. And um, I basically expose occultism and try to de-occult that knowledge, bring it out of hiding, as we should know. You know, the word occult simply means hidden from sight, difficult to see, hidden from the eyes and the ordinary senses, requiring a larger worldview in order to really understand it and incorporate its knowledge into ourselves. And I've been trying to de-occult that knowledge to people, especially the knowledge of natural law, which is really the most occulted information in the world. It is the knowledge of true objective morality and how we can align our behavior to it to create a world that is based in true freedom, as opposed to the world that is based in violence and slavery, which we have now. So that's the main purpose of my work. And to those ends, I also teach a seminar where I train potential content creators in technology, in the technology that is required to do this kind of work and to broadcast that message of natural law and objective morality to human beings all across the world. And, that's been my main mission ever since waking up and leaving the world of dark occultism.
Yeah, and your website is absolutely filled with a ton of information. And starting with uh, uh, the conference you did on natural law, that's the big one there, and then all your podcasts, your radio shows that you did. It's all worth to listen and really contemplate over this information. And by the way, I want to push that a little bit, if you don't mind. The
Sure.
seminar of shadow working. that's coming on the November 22nd.
Yes, I've traditionally given long format presentations. My podcasts range from usually 2 to 3 hours. Um, all of my presentations are usually in the multi-hour, time frame. Although I do give some short presentations depending on events that I've been asked to participate in. But my natural law seminar clocked in at like 8.5 hours. I gave an all-day seminar on the occult origins, the dark occult origins of Nazism and communism, called Two Masks. That clocked in at just under 8 hours. And this seminar, called Shadow Work, is going to be another all-day seminar, probably around 8 hours in total time, with of content. There will be breaks in between the content, of course. We can't go 8 hours straight, but it'll be an all-day event from about 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on November 22nd. And I started really promoting for this one very early because I hope to have a decent turnout for it. It's obviously a virtual event online on the Telegram platform. It's not in person, but I have shifted my work in general. You could say that there's two periods or phases of Mark Passio's work. There's the early phase where I'm talking about dark occultism, um, the uh, rulers of the world, if you will, the people who are really entrenched behind the scenes of politics and finance, etc., who are really running things and making all the important decisions and making laws and dictating how people live their lives, and showing you how they're basically occultists and they're leveraging knowledge about how the mind works to manipulate people. And I was essentially going through all their methodologies of manipulation. In other words, the techniques of mind control and cults, which is what this worldwide system is. It's one big death cult. And I was showing people their symbolism and how that affects the subconscious mind, etc., and so forth. Some people call this conspiracy theory information. There's nothing theoretical about what I've ever talked about or taught in my work. I have direct firsthand experiential knowledge in their societies and orders. So there's nothing theoretical. I lived this in my life. I personally loathe and detest being even referred to as somebody who even examines conspiracy theory, because again, there's nothing theoretical. If you lived something in your life and you were part of organizations that do this, it's not theoretical. This is my lived personal experience, which is why I get angry sometimes with people who call me a theorist. You know, again, I don't discuss theories. I discuss events that actually occurred in my life, and the mindset of the people who were in these organizations and groups who are really at the levers of power in our world today, and all of their henchmen and frontmen who are ruling and running all of the institutions of human society. So that was the first phase of my work, and people responded really well to it. They seem to think that's the ultimate way to go. Like, just talk about all of that stuff, just talk about who's running things, just talk about their methods, etc. And take it really easy on the average public because they've just generally been sort of victims of these people. And while you can say in a way, in a perspective, yes, there has been victimhood on the part of the average person because of how the education system's been designed, the financial system, the medical system, so forth and so on, the major media lying to them all the time. But at some point, my work really shifted fundamentally into a different direction. And that's where most people jumped ship and said, we want nothing to do with this new version of Mark Passio and what he's talking about. We want to hear the old Passio talk about techniques of mind control, techniques of cults, secret societies, occultism, Satanism, their symbolism, etc. Talk about Bohemian Grove all day and their rituals, but once I got into self-examination, once I got into deep introspective personal work that the individual must do upon themselves in order to reverse all of the conditions that have been put in place by these social engineers and dark occultists, then it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not go there, because that doesn't involve me just watching things like a TV show passively, sitting back like it's a movie taking place before my eyes. We don't want that. The public basically said to me, we're not interested in doing deep introspective personal work. We just want to hear about all the external stuff going on. We want to hear about the Satanists and what they're up to and their rituals and symbolism, but we don't want to do anything regarding how we think and how we feel and how we behave in the world, because we're just poor us victims. We're just people who, this has all been done to us without any of our cooperation. We've just been forced into this whole thing, and it's an absolute crock of BS is what it really is on the part of people who say, oh, I love old Passio, but I can't stand listening to his new material or the stuff that he gets into or his attitude, etc. Because they want nothing to do with interpersonal change. They want nothing to do with self-improvement. They want nothing to do with personal responsibility to change the world for the better. No, no, no. We want a nice presentation that we can watch on our screen or on our black fondle slab, black mirror, right? On our personal scrying mirror. We want to watch it all passively. This isn't work that we need to do. We want to watch everything passively on our little device, okay? And say, it's not my responsibility to get involved on the battlefield, on the spiritual battlefield. Then you have other dolts saying he doesn't present any solutions. The entirety of my work since podcast number 1 has been the solution. On the understanding of natural law and objective morality is the solution if you deeply grok it, if you understand it all the way through completely, if you understand it from deep foundational levels. If you grasp natural law and you grasp the true nature of objective morality and how the laws of the universe give to us the consequences of the behaviors that we choose through our free will, then you have the solution in hand. Anybody saying that the solution is not out there to the public and has not been presented by me to the public doesn't understand what the solution is. They don't understand that it's changing your own mind and behaviors to put your thoughts, feelings, and actions into alignment with natural law. And it proves they don't really understand what natural law is, that it's the objective, non-man-made, eternal, and immutable conditions that govern the consequences of the behaviors of beings that have the capacity to understand the difference between right and wrong behavior. Meaning it doesn't govern the animals. It governs human beings and beings of higher level consciousness than human beings, because we as beings have the complexity of mind and physiology to understand what behaviors are rights because they do not initiate harm to other sentient beings, and which behaviors are wrongdoings or transgressions against natural law because they do initiate harm to other sentient beings. And the people who are saying that this is not the solution don't understand the fundamental laws of the universe. This is the problem, is that they have not expanded their worldview to an extent that they understand that there's a higher law in operation than the scribbles of mankind in some book, in some law book someplace, and claiming to be an authority. The other issue is people actually believe the concept of authority of other people, that there can be any such thing as moral authority. There is no such thing. All authority is saying to another being, I rule over your behavioral choices. And you may not do the things that I tell you may not do, and you must do the things that I tell you must do. Once you create that type of a relationship between two or more beings, any more than one being. If you have one being that's commanding another being or multiple beings, or you have multiple beings commanding one or multiple beings, as long as there's that dynamic of I'm going to command you, you must comply, you have claimed the ownership of the other being. The one who's claiming that authority over other beings has claimed ownership of the other being through claiming ownership of their behavior. To claim the ownership of the behavior and free will choices of another being by dictating law to them means definitionally that you have claimed ownership as property of the other being. Because you are owning their behavioral choices, you are therefore owning their behavior, and therefore you are owning their body that they perform their behavior with. There's a word for that definition. There's always been a word for that definition, and it is the truth of what that definition is. See, that's why we have words and definitions. We're delimiting what a concept can mean that we put into language as a word. It's really not a difficult concept to understand, but most people today are postmodernists and solipsists who insist they can make up the definitions of words and what they mean. And it could just mean whatever the hell we want it to mean. That's the world we've actually come into, a total postmodern, solipsistic, sensate society that is truly honestly based in the ideology of Satanism, which should just rightly be called selfishism. If we called it selfishism, nobody would have a problem with it. Selfishism is the world's religion. People believing that they're God, believing that they can just make up whatever they want and it can become truth, and believing that man has authority over other beings. And this is all of my work is about. It's all about one overarching thing: slavery, which is what the word is that meets the definition of what authority is. Authority is the claim to own the behavior of other beings as the one who is able to dictate law to them and therefore control behavior. And that is a claim of ownership on the being. A claim of ownership on another being is called slavery, ladies and gentlemen. It is a perfectly logically laid out argument and definition. If you still don't understand that authority is slavery, there's something seriously not only broken in your brain, there's something deeply, deeply, deeply broken in your heart. You don't have heart-based intelligence. You don't have care activated within your being, within your soul. And this is the problem in human society. And it's specifically a gigantic problem in the freedom movement. And this is why shadow work is so needed, because the people in this community aren't really activated beings. They're still passive watchers. They're passive observers. They have no skin in the game. They have taken up very little to zero personal responsibility to change the world for the better. They want to look on a screen and see something taking place like a new episode of a TV show. And what's their battle cry? Their battle cry is, show me something new. Give me information I haven't seen or heard before. That's literally these moronic dolts' battle cry, is I want something new. I don't want to change anything inside my heart. I don't want to change anything inside my mind or the dumb dolt things that I think every day, or the dumb dolt behaviors that I perform every day. No, 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 no. I want no part of that. That's hard work to change yourself and improve yourself for the better. I want no part of that. I want to point fingers externally and say it's this group. This one, it's all just the Freemasons. They're responsible for all the woes of the world. It's all just the Jesuits. They're responsible for all the woes of the world. It's all the Catholics. It's all the Jews. It's all the Islamicists. Pointing fingers externally, but never doing this for a millisecond. Never once doing that and finding out how are you personally involved in any of this, for better or worse. How are you contributing to the dynamic for the worse by how you think, how you feel, how you behave, what you speak, what you don't speak? How are you getting involved in putting skin in the game for the betterment of humanity? And the answer is most people don't have one crock of crap to show for any work that they've ever done. They have zero involvement. See, unlike people like yourself who are actually doing something, who are actually speaking to other people, who are actually creating content, who are making podcasts, who are inviting guests on to interview them, most people are doing zero. They're sitting back on their lazy butts. They're complaining about everything. They're saying they want the world to change for the better, and then they take no personal responsibility to actually make it better, to make it improve. Things don't improve magically on their own. This is part of natural law. Part of natural law is there are requirements for things to change. And do you know what one of the major requirements for things in our world to change for the better? Human beings have to change for the better. This is the main issue that people don't want to face and wrestle with. They want to stay the lazy bums that they are. And that's what the vast majority of human beings are. They're uneducated, apathetic, lazy, cowardly bums. And that's why I call the freedom movement, especially because the freedom movement is just a subsection of the bums that are the world, that are the people of Earth. Let's face it. The freedom movement fare hardly any better, maybe a tiny sliver better, because they at least desire freedom and say that they want it. They say they want it. Do they really want it? That's very debatable, because somebody who really wants something determines factually the requirements for obtaining that thing. If I want a brand new car on the lot, the first thing I'm going to look at is what is the price that the car is going to cost me if I want that car. Because I'm going to have to at least raise that much funds, or look at the payment that's going to have to be made on a monthly basis and say, can I meet that minimum payment if I don't have the total amount? And you're going to have to plan for that. That's the requirements of obtaining something that is expensive. And if you don't meet the requirements, you don't get the reward. You don't get the new car that you're seeking. It's very simple, to the point of pure stupidity. It's so simple.
Yep.
And yet you say this to people in the freedom movement. There are requirements for human freedom that have not been met in the world. If they were met in the world, we'd already be free and wouldn't be saying we're not free and that we
Absolutely.
want freedom. And
Totally.
yet, when you tell them what the requirements are, they then immediately say, I'm not going to do those things. I don't want any part of that work. I don't want to change how I think and behave in my daily activities. And that might take me away from my cherished peer group. And they might start thinking differently of me. And then I might not have a social life or a family life or good relationships with my friends and family. And they don't want to hear it's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require change inside of you and your behavioral decisions regarding what you do in life on a daily basis. They want no part of that, which is why they hate the new Mark Passio and his work. We don't want to be bothered with that guy because he's really harsh to us. He says mean things to us. He tells us that we're not that intelligent. He tells us that we're apathetic. He tells us that we're cowardly. He tells us that we're bums. He tells us that we're not meeting the requirements to create freedom on this planet. What part have I lied about? I never told anybody I'm here to coddle you and baby you and pat you on the back when you're not really doing anything that tremendous. I never told anybody that I want to be their friend. I never told anybody I'm their personal guru. I never told anybody I'm their savior. I just told you I have the requirements in hand, factually, for what creates freedom in the world. And I know the dynamics that destroy freedom. I'm an expert on human freedom. I'm not anybody's authority. See, I don't even like the word authority relating to I know everything that needs to be known for the most part on a topic. I think that we shouldn't even call those people authorities. I'm not an authority on anything or over anybody. I am an expert. An expert means you know the ins and outs and all the details of how something works. I'm a technological expert in certain ways, okay? And I am definitely an expert regarding the dynamic of how human freedom works on a large scale. And I've given people the answer. The problem is they don't want the answer. They're the kind of people who are just like the postmodernists. They're just like the Marxist trash. They're just like the solipsists out there. They don't want it to be true. See, it doesn't matter whether it is true or not to them. They've decided that's hard. And therefore, I don't want it to be true. So I'm going to just believe that the answer lies somewhere else. And this guy, Passio, is wrong. And that's what they've decided to do. Don't listen to him. He was great when he was talking about symbolism, and there he was an expert and knew his shit, right? But once he got into talking about how I need to change, then he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about anymore, right? Like I would be a total expert on the whole world of the occult, and yet somehow I just don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the greatest secrets of the occult world. I just went off the rails there, you know? And I just don't know what dynamics really govern human freedom and what needs to be done, the requirements for change. There, I got it all jumbled up in my head. But I can tell you all about Satanism, and I could tell you all about secret societies, and I could tell you all about occultism and all about symbolism and all about their methodologies, their cult methodologies and their mind control methodologies. Everybody loves that. They'll listen to endless hours of Passio on that. But as soon as I get into talking about what's going on inside your mind and what you think and how you feel in your heart and what you're willing to do, and mostly what people are not doing, or what they continue to do that is incorrect and wrong and immoral, what they support, what they think in their mind that is totally propping up more immorality, then we want nothing to do with that guy. And that's really the two areas of my work for the last couple of decades. Spending over a decade talking about the external factors, but when I start turning it toward, you know what? You have to change. You have to change the way you think. You have to meet the requirements for freedom. And most of all, you have to put skin in the game, and you need to get involved on the spiritual battlefield by creating content rich, informational rich content, and putting it out publicly and speaking openly and publicly. Then all of a sudden, everybody curls up in a ball. They go into their little turtle shell. Their neck sinks it back into the shell. And they're like, I don't want to hear anything about that guy or his work. That's a mean guy who is telling me I got to do things to get things. You know, these are the people who say, I want the car, but I have no money. And I'm going to get that car somehow. It's just going to magically show up on my street with a nice little bow tie on top of the hood just for me, because I'm a nice person, and that's all that's required. Niceness, it matters so little compared to whether you're correct or not. This is what really matters. Getting the answer correct, then aligning your behavior to the facts of the matter. People don't want to hear that that's how reality works. That's how natural law works. You have to understand what correct thought and behavior is, and then you have to acknowledge that within yourself, and then you have to align your behavior to it through the force of your own will. You have to make yourself think a different way. You have to make yourself behave a different way. It's all about willpower and internal strength and internal fortitude to align your behavior to what is right. And when you start telling that to people, they turn around 180 degrees and they take off like a rocket ship because they want no part of that responsibility or personal change. So that's really where my work has been for the past many years, and has led to what I'm going to be doing in November, which is trying to speak to people within the freedom movement regarding shadow work, which is the work that you do upon yourself to look at all the negative things, look at all the things you're not really doing that you know you should, and start changing your thoughts about yourself, and ultimately leading to changing your behavior regarding what you're doing in the world.
Yes, and I've been doing the shadow work for few years now, and the benefits of doing it are immense. There's good that comes from it, but there's a lot of pain,
Yes,
and confronting truth about yourself is a destructive thing. And
no doubt.
why it's so why it's so important, it's because we cannot do the work if we don't do the shadow work,
That's right. You
because
know
we
what?
this is the principle of correspondence.
Absolutely. As above, so below. If we're a society that is still basically acting like low life trash because we haven't done the shadow work upon ourselves, and we're just complaining about, well, our loss of freedom, and we haven't really bettered ourselves from a spiritual perspective, and we still think low thoughts, we still have basically not activated care, and our behavior is still reflective of basically our low thoughts in the world. What do you think's going to change for the better? Why would anything change for the better with basically low life type people in the world that haven't truly bettered themselves through shadow work? Shadow work is about, you're leaving the low life area of your life, that phase of your life, if you want to call it that, or that identification, as basically somebody who's a bum. That's why I call the freedom movement the bum fight. Okay, it's very harsh. It's a harsh term. I don't even refer to it as the freedom movement. It's the bum fight. It's a bunch of bums all fighting each other. This was actually like some series of like trash videos. It was called Bum Fights. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but it was like really big in the late 90s and stuff like that. And it was just like a guy would go around with a camera to like low rent areas of cities, and he would just film bums getting in an argument and fighting with each other, actual fist fights of bums. It was a series of DVDs, not just one. It was a series of DVDs. Yes, this is true. Look it up. Called Bum Fights. And this is what I call the modern day freedom movement. It is the bum fight. TBM, baby. TBF, the bum fight. TBF, the bum fight. Capital T, capital B, capital F. The TBF, the bum fight. Okay? Because all this movement is just bums yelling and fighting at each other and causing conflict amongst themselves without actually going anywhere. You can't call it a movement. It can't be called a movement. A movement implies that you're going from one place to another. The bum fight isn't going from one place to another, the so called freedom movement. The bum fight is staying right where it is, and they're just fighting each other and creating and doing and going no place. Creating nothing, doing nothing, going nowhere. And it's been this way since the early 2000s. For a quarter of a quarter of a century, decade, multiple decades, a quarter of a century, it's been like this, the bum fight. Okay? And this is because people can't get on the same page about the only thing that governs freedom. There's only, see, Fred, I want to do social experiments throughout the world. I would love to see freedom oriented groups, meetup groups, lectures, in person meetups, gatherings, you name it, wherever freedom, so called freedom oriented people gather. Okay, wherever there's 10 or more people who gather, I want to see a social experiment done. And if anybody, I'm going to just lay this out on this podcast as a challenge slash request. Okay. If anybody has in person meetups of any kind with generally freedom oriented groups of people, okay, it doesn't matter whether it's a libertarian party meeting, it doesn't matter whether it's, a lecture on what, real freedom is or anarchy. It doesn't matter whether it's a lecture on occultism or whatever. Wherever there's people who gather who generally say they want freedom, here's the social experiment. I want people to I want the person who's organizing the group to pose one simple question that has a correct answer, that is not a subjective question, or does not have an answer depending on subjectivity of the person answering it. It has a true, real, in nature, in the natural world, objectively true answer. And this is the question. And then I'll tell you what the answer is, and I'll tell you the social experiment you do. The question that the organizer should pose is, what is the dynamic? In one word, answer in one word. Tell me the dynamic that ultimately governs the state of human freedom. That's it. What dynamic in the world, in nature, in the universe, doesn't matter how you want to word it, governs the condition of human freedom? Meaning, what is freedom hinged upon in society? In a society of people, what dynamic does freedom hinge itself upon? Meaning, if this dynamic is altered in some way, freedom is altered proportionally. And if it's altered in a different way, freedom is then altered proportionally in the opposite way. And I will guarantee that exactly, here's my guarantee of anybody who does this social experiment anywhere in the world, and there will only be one factor that will change this. Here, and really listen to this. Exactly 0 people will get the answer correct. Exactly 0. No one will answer the question correctly. They will all give millions of different answers, and every answer that they give will be an incorrect answer, unless they have been exposed to Mark Passio's work at some point in their past. I will guarantee this. I will 100% guarantee this result. For people that want to do this social experiment, they can ask that question, and not one soul will get the answer correct, unless they have formerly been exposed to my work. And I mean watched a lot of my work, or at least really, really deeply understood my natural law seminar, maybe. Okay? And we know that the correct answer, or people watching this should know that the correct answer is morality, and not religious morality. You see, so we can make a distinction here for all the people who hear that word, and it's 99% of people hear the word morality, and the very first word that they associate it with is religion. I will guarantee you this. You could do a word association game and tell people responding with one word to the word that I say. And I'll guarantee this result if people want to do a social experiment with the word morality. You do a word association game, say one word back to the word that I say, and you say morality to the person. 95% minimum, I'm going to give you the percentage. 95% of people in the world will respond with the word religion. You want to do another one? Give people the word occult, OCCULT. 95% of people will say it means evil. They won't tell you it means hidden. They won't be correct about that. People still don't know the definition of the word occult in the year 2025. You give people the word morality, 95% are going to associate it right away with religion. And this is the entire absolute disgraceful state that religion has produced. The disgrace of the human condition that is largely responsible because of the false morality that is taught and conveyed in religious institutions. They are some of the most vile, detestable organizations that have ever been created by human beings. Religions teach false forms of morality to confuse what true objective morality is and creates, because religion doesn't want people to understand freedom, because it is part of the satanic control system. That government is the mechanism by which the satanic system gets put into place. Another thing I want to mention is, imagine religionists who say these verminous pieces of trash who say they want freedom. And I don't care who I alienate in my work by saying that. That's true. Religionists are not good people because they're subscribing to false morality. And if you subscribe to false morality, your behavior cannot be in alignment with true morality, with objective morality under natural law, which is not a religion, which is a dynamic that exists in the natural world because the Creator put those laws there, just like it put other physical laws there. And when people go, who created natural law, Mark? What created it? How does it come into existence? This is like asking, how did matter come into existence? How did all the laws of matter come into existence? Well, the exact same way that natural law that governs behavior came into existence. The Creator put those laws there because it designed things intelligently. And I don't need to subscribe to a bullshit religion to understand how natural law functions. This is the problem, is that subscribing to some bullshit religion will get you exactly that. A bunch of bullshit about what morality is instead of the truth about what morality is. And this is why religions are so insidious, dangerous, and satanic. And let me just say this to all the people who are still statists out there, who still believe government is somehow moral, should exist, and is not slavery. Number one, you're a dunce. Number two, you're a bad person. You can't believe that government is moral and claim to be a good person, because what you're saying is, I believe that slavery should exist in some form or fashion, and yet I consider myself a good person. You're trash. That's what a piece of trash thinks like. A piece of immoral, verminous trash. And verminous just means infested with rats or rodents, okay? So your soul is verminous. It's verminous black rodent trash, okay? Okay? I'm just going to say it how it is streetwise, just out in street language, because that's what people have allowed themselves to become by not examining the inner aspect of their soul, by not doing shadow work. They believe they're good people when actually they're verminous rat trash. Okay? And what shadow work gets you to do from a streetwise, literal perspective, it says, stop bullshitting. Stop lying to yourself. Stop calling yourself a good person when you believe in slavery. Trash. And I'm not going to say that to you. You're going to say that to you. You're going to acknowledge that. You're going to admit it to yourself. That's what real shadow work makes you do. When I was doing shadow work, I laid down in a bed in a room with black painted walls because I had used it as a satanic ritual chamber. And I laid down and I pressed click on my old school CD player in my bedroom, in my black walled bedroom, on a black bed, a bed with black sheets. And I pressed play and I listened to Cathedral's album, Forest of Equilibrium, over and over and over and over again while examining all of my thoughts and behaviors while I was a Satanist, and just bombarded myself with the truth about who I was and the piece of trash that I had become, listening to the most ponderous doom metal that I could find at the time. And I sat there until I acknowledged who and what I became. And I mean acknowledged it with no buts, ors, ands, etc. Just confronted it directly. So imagine trash that claims to be Christian, claiming to be followers and emulators of Christ and Christ consciousness as portrayed in the biblical scriptures in the New Testament. Imagine people who say in one sentence, I am Christian. I'm a follower of Christ, regardless of whether you think that's a historical figure or whether you think it's an allegorical story to teach consciousness and to teach natural law to the human species. Doesn't matter whether you think it's a historistic figure, okay, that actually existed in the world in human history. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you think it's a spiritual allegorical figure in a story or a fable to teach morality and natural law. Either way, to dare to claim to be a follower of Christ and his message. And then in the next sentence you say, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a political follower, or I believe government should exist, or I support this government or this military or that military, or these cops or those cops. Imagine what kind of verminous rat trash someone has to be to dare think that they're a follower of Christ. I mean, I can't get any more angry or upset about anything. And that person would then say, you don't claim to be Christian because you don't say Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior. That's not what it is to be a true Christian. That's what a fake Christian will do, and then go support government, military, and cops. A true emulator of Christ and his consciousness will say, I don't support violence. I don't support slavery. I don't support all the things that government has done to people in the name of saying, we're going to keep you safe. What they've done is enslave. What they've done is murder. What they've done is kill. What they've done is rape human rights. What they've done is conduct nothing but violence. What they've done is create subclasses of nothing but dunce order followers who can't think for a second on their own and just follow orders, which is the exact antithesis of behaving in harmony with natural law. And these people would dare call themselves Christian or Christ-like. Natural law is God and Christ's system. Natural law is Christ's system on earth, and it's God's system in the universe. Government is the satanic slavery system. Stop calling yourselves Christ-like. Stop calling yourselves followers of Christ. Stop calling yourselves Christian. You're nothing of the kind. Your verminous satanic trash are what people who say in one breath they're statists and believe government has any right to exist morally, and then in the next breath say they're a follower of Christ. You're a follower of rat trash. And somebody needs to tell you that, and I'll be the one to tell you, all the people who believe that. But I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy for saying it that way, right? You just tell somebody you believe in authority. That means you believe that somebody has the right to totally contravene your free will. That's what the belief in authority is. And you think the God of creation shares the authority of law? See, that's what the whole satanic system is, becoming an author. That's why it's called authority. And what are you authoring when you're inside the satanic mindset and system? You're authoring law. The only lawmaker and lawgiver is the Creator, and it doesn't share its power or authority of law. It is that power. It is that authority. It is that law. God is that law. That's what binds everything in the universe, law. Law binds all matter in the universe. Law binds all behavior in the universe. Everything is governed by law, but not man's law, the natural law of God. And religionists would dare to say human beings are lawmakers and lawgivers, law creators, authors of law, authorities. They don't even stop to think, where the hell does the word authority come from? It means to author something, to write down what you say the law is. This is what jurisdiction is. Juris in Latin. It's because people don't know the origins of words in the English language and what ancient root languages they came from, like Latin and Greek. You know, the word jurisdiction from juris in Latin, jus, means law. Juris is actually the genitive case, the possessive case of the word jus in Latin, I-U-S. And there's no J in classical Latin. In English, it comes down to us as jurisdiction. Well, then what's diction? The word, it's an English word. Diction means speech, coming from the Latin dictere, the verb which means to speak or to say. So put them together. Jurisdiction, the law, to speak the law. You're just reversing the order. To say what the law is, or in other words, to author the law. Jurisdiction. That's the satanic system. The satanic system is that man usurps the place of God, the creator of law, of moral law, and becomes the author of man's law. And the dolts out here in the freedom community and in the alternative media, the actual dunce dolts that should be sitting in a corner with a fucking big conical dunce cap on, okay? But they're out there podcasting to millions of people, way more subscribers and followers than I ever have on any of my media, okay? And they're telling them this is perfectly moral. Wrong, dunce, in your fucking big conical dunce cap. It's the satanic system. Man's law is Satan's system. Government is Satan's system. It isn't Christ's system. Natural law is Christ's system. Natural law is God's system, the true good God of creation. Man's law is Satanism. It's selfishism. It's saying, I want to be God. I want to be the creator. I want to be the lawmaker. I want to be the author. I want to be the authority. And what it all is a pack of verminous rat trash that's based in Satan's system and Satan's thoughts and Satan's black fucking heart and Satan's actions. Not Christ's, and certainly not the God of creations. Let's get that clear to all the dolt dunces in the so-called freedom movement that still think government has any moral right to exist. But how would this get done, Mark? How would we do this? How would we do that? I'm not here to tell you all methodologies on how things can or should be done. I'm here to explain to you what's immoral, that you should stop thinking, that you should stop doing. See, freedom isn't about how something is done. Sorry to burst your bubble, that's not the solution. The solution isn't to outline steps. It's to understand concepts that are based in moral law. It's to understand if you behave this way in Satan's system, and you keep perpetuating Satan's system, do you know what you get more of? You get more of Satan's system, and you get more satanic, chaotic, disorderly, destructive results. When you abide by God's system of behaving within the parameters of natural law, meaning don't do 7 things. Murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and deception. The 7 deadly sins, the real 7 deadly sins.
Pretty simple.
Don't. So simple, it's stupid.
Yep.
So simple, it's borderline retardation factor.
Yep.
Okay? You'd have to be a retard not to understand it. And there's no problem with that word. People say, how dare you say that word? It means you're slow on the uptake. That's all it means. It means you're a slow person. You're slow-witted. Retardation means slow-wittedness. It means you don't get things quickly. See, I'm not a retard. I'm a very intelligent man, so I get things like this. Concepts don't have to be re-explained to me 10 billion times. Once I hear something, I understand it in language, and I get the conceptual idea. That's what raw, true intelligence is. That's what holistic intelligence is. Okay, not just left brain intellect. That's what holistic intelligence is. The ability to recognize patterns in your environment and meaning. Okay? And most people don't have it. They're slow-witted. They're a little dull. Their senses aren't really working right. Their consciousness isn't really there. They're not truly aware. They're sleepwalking. This is another thing shadow work helps you to realize. How much are you just sleepwalking through life? How much are you not really examining things, especially the things that go on within yourself and your own psyche? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I stumble upon these people every day. I call them the sleepwalkers.
Yep.
These people are dangerous people.
The Walking Dead. They're
Yeah,
zombies.
they're very dangerous. It's just because they don't know it, but they're very dangerous and very. You cannot guess what these people will do to protect this government, protect their own comfort, their own ego,
Yep.
their own beliefs in this
That's all they
place.
want to do. They
Yep.
just want comfort. That's basically the two kinds of people that exist in the world. People who are convinced because they have been taught the entirety of the purpose of human existence is to live for comfort. That's one kind of person. The other kind of person knows that is not the goal of human existence. And the goal of human existence is to learn, to grow, and to improve oneself and one's fellow human beings. That's the true goal of human existence. And when you really discover that that's the purpose of life, you then step into leading a purpose driven life instead of living for comfort. Comfort is Satan's system. Improvement within the self and within society is God's system. See, this is what I really need to do is make it like nursery school. Nursery school flashcards. 1 plus 1 is 2 kids. 2 plus 2 is 4 kids. We need nursery school flashcards. Government is Satan's system. Natural law is God's system. Living for selfish creature comfort is Satan's system. That's what Satanism is, kids. And truly improving oneself and then helping to improve society as a whole, that's God's system. The freedom movement does not want to hear this. The freedom movement wants to hear, I need to do nothing except go out and vote on election day for whoever the lesser of two evils happens to be. This is what actual dumb, absolute cretins. Okay, you remember the Ramones song Cretin Hop? There's no stopping the cretins from hopping. That's what describes these people. They are NPCs. They're non-player characters in some crazy simulation. They're cretins hopping around. They're the pinheads. The Ramones were ahead of their time, right? The pinhead with their mascot jumping around like a complete retard. They were mocking the average person. They're not. The Ramones were not saying that they're like that. They're saying that the average Joe and Jane Dolt are like that. Okay, they're pinheads. They're cretins. Okay, and that's how most people want to stay. They want to stay a slow on the uptake cretin, and they want to do that because existing like that keeps you where you're at in a state of relative comfort. It keeps you in your same peer group. You don't lose friends. You don't lose family members. You don't lose any comfort by rocking the boat, right? So if you rock the boat, you lose that comfort. So they say to themselves, I don't want to lose all this comfort because that's my satanic system that I've been living in. I'm some, megalomaniac narcissist that has to be comfortable all the time and can never sacrifice anything for anybody. I can never perform a selfless act in my entire miserable satanic existence. So I just want to stay in my comfort zone, in my existing peer group. I don't really want to improve because when I improve and my peers don't, they'll all fall away or they'll all ostracize me. And I don't want to have that happen. I want to stay in my satanic comfort zone. And that's why people don't want to engage shadow work. It's the hardest thing there is to engage. You have to be the hardest on yourself. You don't even look at other people with shadow work. You only examine the self and you look at your shortcomings, whether they're perceived or imagined, whether they're real or imagined. There are real shortcomings and then there's perceived shortcomings. Real shortcomings are, right now, I actually do not have enough knowledge to do a task that would create media and put it on the internet. I simply do not have that knowledge. This would be one form of shadow work at a very light level, let's say, right? I maybe perhaps have the desire to say something and contribute to the conversation, but I'm acknowledging right now I do not possess those skill sets. I don't know how to do that task. That's a real limitation. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do something about it, because then you can affirm what you're going to do, and then you could take action regarding that. That's why it's a threefold system. It's acknowledgement, affirmation, and action. Acknowledgement means you acknowledge the bad. Affirmation means you say what you're going to do to correct it. And then action means you actually put the methodologies and steps in place to take the behavior that is going to achieve those requirements and then get the good results on the other side. Very simple threefold system. It's what I use to straighten myself out and become an actual responsible adult,
Oh
as
yeah.
opposed to a chronic complainer that does nothing and has no skin in the game. So that's the first part of it. You would simply acknowledge the truth about a deficiency. Now, let's look at briefly how, and this is what I'm going to do in the seminar, by the way, things like this. And it's going to get way deeper than this, okay? But this is just like a starting exercise to just begin to perceive what the shadow work process is. It's about telling the truth to yourself about yourself. This is what most people never want to do. So the next part, or a imagined inadequacy, is I'm not smart enough to learn what I need to learn to meet requirements. See, that's a bullshit story, right? So you got to separate real inadequacies, which do exist. It's not like every inadequacy is perceived and in the mind. No, there are real, genuine, in nature, in the natural world, true inadequacies that have to be wrestled with. But then there are perceived inadequacies and shortcomings, which are all inventions of the bullshit story that we tell ourselves in the mind. And that they go like this: I'm just not a good person and can't become one. I'm just destined to stay a piece of trash. That's a lie. Improvement is possible. That we have to understand, that's the first worldview change that you have to take, is that positive change is possible with hard work. It doesn't just magically occur on its own. All positive change happens with the alignment of our willpower to the truth and to the requirements that exist in nature to create positive change. And then that positive change is possible. Without aligning our knowledge and behavior to the truth, positive change is not possible. But once we do engage in that alignment, it is possible for us to improve ourselves in any aspect, whether it comes to intelligence or caring more or doing more. Doesn't matter what dynamic of consciousness is involved. It's all able to be changed for the better with hard work, not magically. Okay? And someone would basically say in their mind, these perceived incorrectly perceived inadequacies, they'd tell themselves a story like this: I'll just never be smart enough to understand what to do to make, let's say, a video podcast and put it out into the world to help people understand something. I just don't think I have the ability to do that. Wrong. You just haven't worked hard enough at meeting the requirements technologically or in knowledge. And this is how people defeat themselves. They tell themselves total
Yep.
bullshit stories that aren't true and create all these perceived inadequacies, and then they don't go to work on correcting the true inadequacies. So they stay right where they're at with no skin in the game because they started with no personal responsibility. They go through the mental machinations to help perpetuate that condition, and then they end up with no responsibility, which is exactly where the satanic system going on in their mind wants them to land, with no added responsibility on their lap or upon their shoulders. And that's what it means to stay a satanic cosmic child. What it
Yep.
means to become a true moral cosmic adult is to step into the dynamic of aligning your behavior to natural law through personal introspective shadow work and improve the self first. See, I did this process, and it's never a totally complete process. It's always
Sure.
ongoing because you never achieve perfection. But you can achieve a state where you meet the main requirements for understanding human freedom and teaching those requirements to others. I did that shadow work decades ago. Over 20, I'm going to say 20 years ago. I did all that shadow work. hard, more than 20 years ago. This is like in the late 90s. So it's like over 25 years ago is when I did that deep introspective shadow work. And would you say it's 100% refined and complete? No. It
No.
never really is. Everybody has flaws and imperfections, myself included. I'd be the last person on earth to say that I've achieved any kind of perfected state, would never make that statement. But what I have achieved is an understanding of the requirements for human freedom and the alignment of my personal mind and behavior to those dynamics in nature. So I've aligned my behavior with natural law, and I'm teaching it. I'm teaching how to do it. I'm teaching how to get yourself right in that process. That's the shadow work process. And then I'm teaching how to influence others to help get them right. That's teaching the technological seminar that I teach to prepare potential content creators for what they're going to need to know how to do, which is, I call that how to become the true media. Okay, that's my technological seminar that I teach throughout half the year. 6 months of the year, I teach a seminar on content creation and how to go about doing that. So I could help create new content creators in the world that are going to help teach natural law and objective morality. That's the second part of the great work, which is change yourself internally, then help other people to change themselves internally. And when we do that, the world will improve. Those are the requirements for the world improving. That is the solution for all the drooling retards that continue to say, Passio doesn't present any solutions. The entirety of my body of work is the solution to human slavery. If you can't understand that, you're probably a retard from Jump Street. Anybody that looks at my work and can't perceive this is the answer to what needs to be put into place in the world is probably a drooling retard. I'm sorry, but there's no easy way to say to somebody that they're dumb and retarded. You just have to say it to them. And maybe they'll get the hint that they're a bum that doesn't really improve themselves, that is low information and probably low IQ, and they're not trying to improve themselves. See, I never rag on people who are trying. All you got to do is try to make improvement. And I mean genuine effort. I'm not talking about half assed efforts. Like, I say I'm going to get involved, and then I make a couple of flyers, and people don't want to take them out of my hands, and then I throw them up in the air and say, I'm out. That's not real try. That's not real effort, right? Real effort isn't saying, hand me the easiest task and let me do it half-assed and say that I was part of something. That's not genuine effort either. I'm talking about genuine effort, really getting involved. I'm not talking about people who are like, let me see what Passio's tech seminar is all about as an intellectual curiosity. And then I see how hard it's really going to be to really become a content creator and really dedicate my life to this. And then I say, you know what, it's probably not worth it. That's not trying. Trying is making a true, genuine effort with the full force of your willpower and staying the course, at least for a decent amount of time. That's trying. That's making a genuine effort. Most people don't do that. You know, they half ass everything because they want to stay bums without any personal responsibility. A bum on the street doesn't have any responsibility. He has no possessions to really take care of him, except maybe a shopping cart he's pushing around or a bag he's holding, you know, or his refrigerator box he's sleeping in. Very little responsibility, low maintenance, low effort, you know, low um, quality as a being, period. And that's why I call this movement the bum fight. They're the kind of people that don't want to do that shadow work to improve themselves and to improve their effort in the world, to make genuine, real, lasting effort. But they're great at complaining. And you know what they're the best at? They're champions. They should win the WWE title belt if there were a championship for complaining about Mark Passio and how mean he is and how much he yells and how much I can't stand the later aspects of his work. I'll listen to all the early stuff where he points fingers at the cabal of social engineers. But once he points the finger at me and say my effort is negligible or zero, then that guy is the bad guy. You got the title belt in that category. They're the champ in their weight class in that category. Okay, but
Yeah.
God forbid, ask them to actually get involved and try hard. Then it's crickets chirping and they're nowhere to be found. It's like a cartoon, literally, where they took off so fast there's a whirlpool of dust in their wake. That's literally what these people are like.
Yeah, I did a freedom fighter on the Quebecer side there, and yeah, I'm pretty disgusted with what I've seen so far. Most people are still into the religionist political mindset, and I can do a lot of connection of what about what you're saying about the freedom movement in United States. Um, it's the same. We have the Trumpers, you have these QAnon retards, and then you have and they're very strong
Oh yeah.
here.
They're
Yeah,
convinced that's the answer. I mean, Q is just going to save us all. I mean, the white hats, the Q is just going to unleash on the shadow state, on the deep state. My God, it's going to be like a 30-second process. And the mass arrest, the prisons are just going to be overflowing. We're going to have to build new prisons for all the mass arrests. I mean, these white hats got it. You don't need to do anything except get your popcorn and watch the movie on the screen like the passive observer retard that you are, if you believe that donkey shit. Because that's what that is. That's not bullshit. That's not horse shit. That's some donkey shit. Okay?
yeah,
That's what
they
that
were what
is.
they were saying. Hold the line. Don't do anything.
Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So,
No
I mean,
action required on your part. Thank God. Thank God, man. I thought I was going to have to get involved and do something for a second. You scared me. Q's got this. The White Hat's got this. Thank God.
yeah, military
I mean,
psyop
imagine that
like
there are
garbage.
these are nuclear retards. They are retards that they blew up nuclear and they're spreading the retardation all over the world like fallout. I'm serious. It's
Yeah,
sad. It's sad what the mind control social engineers have done to people. It's I mean, it really, in all honesty, I have to stand back in awe, in amazement. I have to stand back and go, wow.
yep,
I would just like to shake the social engineer's hand and
yep,
say, what can I say as an opponent? Well done. Well done. Never would have imagined that it was possible. Well done. Like, I have respect for an opponent that can do that. You know, I don't know. I can't influence minds for the good at that level. How they're influencing minds for the bad and for the to become completely utterly retarded. I can't even imagine. I can only aspire to be able to influence minds for true good that way. These guys are the champions. These social engineers, these satanic social engineers that are doing that and putting those psyops into place, they are real champions at what they do. They are the heavyweight fucking champions of the world in mass
yep.
mind control. And they know what they're doing and they can influence. They can't influence it for the good. That's way harder. Now, believe me, if they sat in my position, they'd fail way worse than I ever have. Okay? I've at least influenced a few people toward the good, truly, right? More than a handful, let's say. But I can only aspire to own minds like they own the QAnon movement minds.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the true dark great work, and they are champions at doing it. That's the dark great work, not the true one great work. That's the satanic great work. And man, do they know what they're doing. Those guys are experts. They're not authorities of anybody or anything, but they are experts at doing that. I
Yeah.
wish I was as much of an expert on influencing minds for the good.
Hmm.
That takes numbers. That Mark Passio is not powerful enough of a magician or whatever you want to, an alchemist, an influencer, to do that on my own. I would need significant help, which is what I've been calling for from day one, which is what the whole great work is about. It's about cooperation. It's about partnership. It's not about anybody being anybody's authority or guru or master. It is about us getting together and doing the work of influencing people toward the true good. And if more people got involved in that, we'd make more headway. If more effort was put behind that, we'd make more headway in the world. And we would be transforming the world as we speak into a much better place to live in. Instead, people are watching, observe. This is literally their mantra. Grab your popcorn and watch the show. How do you believe you're involved as a good person in any capacity? You're a passive observer doing nothing while evil runs amok because you believe a bullshit psyop story. And you can't tell these people. Like you said, they're totally committed to it. That's what a cult is. Natural law is not a cult. It's a dynamic in nature that is observable, that acts in a certain way, that is repeatable, that is knowable, that is a dynamic of science, having nothing to do with belief or religion. There is nobody requiring anybody to believe anything. What people in the natural law community and the anarchist community are asking people to do is simply observe nature and how it actually works to bring us the
Absolutely.
consequences of the behavior that we ourselves choose and put out into the world. Then what result do you get on the other side? And
Yeah.
it's insanity because people have been doing the same things, getting the same chaotic, disorderly, destructive results, and they keep doing the same things while saying they want the opposite. That's madness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can't see it.
And they're gonna be proud to doing it again. Here in Canada, it's gonna be not maybe in a few weeks. They're gonna elect another master, and I'm telling them, don't do it. You cannot give your responsibilities to anyone or any hegemony of
Yep,
power.
that's right.
We voting is violence. Government is slavery. I keep on repeating it again and again and again. And if I get 1% of the people, I'm gonna be happy about it. Because we should be in the one great work network. We should be millions of
That's right.
people.
That's right. And instead, we have a few people watching on a daily basis, instead of tens of millions. Um, One of the things I always just tell people is just imagine the old form of authority that was called kingship or royalty. Imagine having one person seated on a throne in a castle someplace in Europe, and all the people in the whole geographical region has to obey this one being's dictates, what he or she says, the king or queen, the sovereign. How could anybody ever possibly imagine that being a moral condition of rightness or righteousness? Could you imagine being so fucking dumb and retarded that you actually believe this person has the moral authority to act as a king and command others? And then if they don't comply to the commands of the king or queen, they'll send henchmen out to do violence unto them. And imagine anybody, anywhere, ever, in any part of history, any time frame, actually believing that was a moral condition in place. How fucking retarded would someone have to be to say, oh, yeah, the king has every right to be that king and to do those things? Yes, that's moral. That's right. That's perfectly within the boundaries of right. That you could just hear the kind of fucking egghead fucking retard that would say something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the king had the authority. It was gifted by God to the king. Yeah, you didn't know? Oh, we'll send you the memo on the papyrus. Don't worry about it. And it's just the same kind of fucking moron egghead today that goes, oh, yeah, there's authority in government. It's real. It's moral. Yeah, they have authority over other people. You didn't get the memo? We'll send you the email again. It must have went in your spam box. This is the kind of fucking morons that exist all around us.
Yeah.
They can't see that all government is oligarchical authority, meaning you diffuse it to a few people instead of one king or queen. Or it's the same system. It's dictates by this person or these people. In the form of a kingship, it's one person in royalty. In the form of government, it's a few people. It's an oligarchy instead of a monarchy. And they're that dumb that they don't even understand it's the same exact satanic system. It's Satanism. It's our will be done or we'll kill you. That's what Satanism is. the satanic ego inside of humankind saying, we're God. We're the rulers. We're the masters. We're the lawmakers and the lawgivers. We're the authorities. That's Satan's system. That's what Satan was. And I don't believe in Satan as a god. I don't believe in Satan in the way Christians think of the evil God. I'm talking about a force within the mind. That's what Satan really is. Satan is the out of control runaway ego, which, as I said, instead of calling it Satanism, we should just call it pure egotism or egoism or selfishism or selfishnessism. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. It's all the runaway ego thinking that it is God. That's not Christ. That's not Christian. If you believe in that system, you're following Satan and his system. It's not Christ-like. It's not Christian. It has nothing to do with Christ or Christianity. True Christianity, true following of Christ, is understanding what Christ wanted to put in place in the human mind and heart. And then emulating that. Did Christ want rulers? Did Christ want masters? Did Christ want a system of fucking slavery? No, he didn't, and never would. If Christ came back today in the flesh, would he say, who am I voting for today? To rule over other people and force their policies on my fellow man and woman and brother and sister? You think Christ would do that? If you do, you're a fucking retard. And that's all people have to understand. You're not Christian. If you believe in government, you're not Christian. Stop calling yourself a fucking Christian. You're not. You're a Satanist. People who believe in government are Satanists. I don't care whether they claim to be a Satanist, whether they profess it from the fucking hilltops. They're de facto Satanists, meaning in their deeds, in their thoughts, in their actions. They're satanic. And they're evil. They're not good people. If you're perpetuating a system of evil, you're a part of evil. Therefore, you're evil yourself. You're an embodiment of evil. You're helping evil get done in the world what it wants to get done. That's not Christ-like. That's not Christian. That's satanic. That's fucking evil. And if somebody out there listening embodies that, you're an evil person. You're not a good person. You're dedicated to the work of evil, not the work of God and good. Get over it. Get as offended as you want. It's still going to be true anyway. It's still the truth, whether you don't want to hear it or not, whether you don't like it or not, whether you don't fucking understand it or not. It's still the fucking truth about who you are if that's how you think. The end. For all time. That's the eternal truth of that matter. And the shadow work that needs to be done is accepting that that's the real objective truth in nature. And then getting yourself out of that satanic mindset and improving yourself. And then helping to improve the world toward true goodness and the true laws of the Creator. Not man's laws. And this is the exact message Christ was teaching people, which got him murdered by the state. The pigs killed Christ. The police and military of their day, the order followers, killed Christ at the behest of who? The Roman Senate. And they were influenced by who? The temple money changers, which were the financiers of their day. That was the financial system, the money powers. And then who were they ultimately influenced by? The Pharisees and the Sadducees, the established religious institutions in Judea at the time of Christ, or the story of Christ, however you want to look at it. But religion, money, and government are who conspired together to murder Christ and then did it. And this is who the assholes of today's world and freedom movement want to put their faith in. They want to put their faith in religion. They want to put their faith in the financial system. They want to put their faith in government. That's Satan's unholy system. It's not the system of Christ and the God of creation, and never will be.
Imagine the
It's
damage.
got to be said like this. It's got to be said nastily to people.
Yep.
They're not willing to listen when it's said politely. They're not willing to listen when it's laid out perfectly logically. I've done that for decades. Go and listen to the early Passio. I was a very calm man back then in my younger years. I progressively got more and more harsh to people because I realized how more and more fucking satanic they've become, and unapologetically so. They're just narcissistic, verminous trash. Satanists in their hearts and deeds. In their minds, their hearts, and their deeds, they're satanic. You don't need to profess to Satanism or go partake in satanic rituals at some satanic institution to be a Satanist. You're a Satanist by how you think, how you feel, and how you behave in the world. It's called being a de facto Satanist. And that's where all these people are. That's why I call the freedom movement the bum fight, because it's just loaded with fucking egotistical Satanists with no knowledge of how freedom works. And then they want to complain about me and my work and my anger toward their ignorance, apathy, laziness, cowardice, and bumness, quite frankly. And that's what this whole so-called freedom movement is, and that's why it'll never lead to freedom, because it's one big mess of a satanic fucking bum fight.
Yeah, and it leads to fucking trash parenting too.
That's it.
How are the children are treated in this modern era? It's fucking horrifying.
You want to know what part of the shadow work seminar is going to be? People must acknowledge that their parents fucked them up.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge your parents gave you treacherously wrong information. I mean, like, tragically wrong, tragically bad info, right? Most people's parents were such dumb dolts that they just programmed absolute garbage into the mind of their child. I'll be the first to admit it. Let me show you a piece of shadow work. This is how shadow work goes in the real world, okay? My family were trash. They didn't have any knowledge or care of morality, of true morality. They were religious bullshit believers. They didn't do their best. They should not be propped up on a pedestal just because they're biologically related and connected to me. They were never truly, really my family who cared about me. My parents were trash. They never truly, really cared about my spiritual development. And see, I'm okay with all of this. I'm saying that now about me. Real talk. Okay? Absolute harsh reality truth. Unapologetically. If they were in the room, I'd say it right to their face. Right to their face. You failed miserably. You were not good family members. You were not good friends. You were not good parents. You weren't even good human beings. Ever in my presence. The people who eventually helped me get out of my satanic condition that you put me in, that you programmed into me, that you helped the social engineers program into me because of your failure as family members, as friends, and most of all as parents. Strangers had to raise me up morally. I had to receive that moral upbringing from 100% absolute strangers that I never met for a millisecond in personal real life, face to face, in physical presence. Yet they performed the labor of love to put the information out into the world that would eventually morally raise me. Those are my family members. Those are my friends. Those are my real parents. That's shadow work, ladies and gentlemen. That's real shadow work. And most people will never do it for a millisecond of their lives. They'll run away from that process forever. From lifetime to lifetime, perhaps, they'll run away from that process because they don't have the internal fortitude to just face it and say it aloud to themselves. Now, I did that day after day after day, week after week, month after month, for years, saying that into a mirror to myself. With silence around me, with no technology on, with no TV blaring, with no music playing, sitting down in front of a mirror and speaking the truth to myself until I realized there's nobody coming to help me from this condition. I have to help raise myself out of it. I have to reach out to others and help them improve themselves so that they can get onto the great work. And I took years to get to the point where I'm really explaining what the great work is and what shadow work is. Because you have to prepare people with other truths first. It's a stepwise progression. This is why I tell people go and listen to my podcast in order and transition from the old Passio to who I am now. You know, transition to that information flow. And then you'll understand my anger. You can't understand it in isolation by listening to one podcast. Sorry, but you might think you can, but you really can't. You got to listen to a stepwise progression. And the progression will also give you all of the information you need to know about this world and who's running it and how it operates and all their techniques to totally poison your mind and your heart and your soul. And if you care enough about yourself, and if you care enough about your loved ones, and if you care enough about future generations of humanity, you'll get to work on your own personal shadow work, and then you'll put skin in the game, and you'll actually do something to make a better world for ourselves and those who come after us. And I mean, that's really all I have to say about it. And I think that's probably, like, if you're okay with it, a decent place to leave what we've talked about today.
Sure.
I think that's very direct. I went off a little bit, but maybe not over the top completely. And it really gets to the heart of the matter. The real central heart of the matter is, if you don't want to examine your behavior and your thoughts and what you're doing and how you're affecting other people in the world, you're not really a good person. If you believe that authority exists, you're not really a good person. If you believe government is moral and should continue to exist, you're not a good person. And you have to really, in all honesty, it's not Mark Passio that you need to come face to face and term to term with that about. It's the God of creation. Because, one thing I am happy about, one thing that I can say I actually find joy and peace in, is that all human beings will one day die. That's not a horrible thought. That's not something I feel anxiety about. That's something I feel joy and peace over, because every being is going to have to come one to one, mano a mano, with their creator, and then there won't be any justifications, there won't be any excuses, there won't be any more lies. It'll be the raw, brutal truth of what they did and didn't do when they had the time in this world to do it.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to eventually face that day. And that's what I find joy and peace in. So if people, find value in anything I've said here today, visit my website, whatonearthishappening.com. I always recommend the podcast series in order, which will actually change your existing worldview if you go through that process. It's a process of shadow work unto itself to listen to all of my podcasts in order.
Yep.
And then go through my lectures, my presentations, etc. And your worldview will be changed forever if you get enough of that information. It's the old adage. I'll wrap up on this. The old adage of, and I always forget the poet's name who, coined this, but it's the Pierian spring in the ancient Greek philosophy represented the fount of knowledge. It was the wellspring of knowledge and information that would just well up like a fountain. And I think it was William Blake, but don't quote me, I'm not positive, who said, drink deeply or taste not from the Pierian spring. So he's telling people, drink in fullness of knowledge. Take the fullness of knowledge into yourself, or don't bother. Don't be the kind of person that wants sound bites. Oh, I find this intellectually curious, so give me the 30-second version of Mark's Natural Law Seminar, would you? No. The whole 8.5 hours are required, or it wouldn't have been 8.5 hours. It would have been a 30-second TikTok clip. It's not. It's an 8.5 hour powerhouse of a philosophical and intellectual lecture. that you have to focus in on and really hear what's said deeply with no distractions. And then maybe you'll get it. Drink deeply or taste not from the Pierian spring,
Okay.
because at the Pierian spring, shallow drafts, little sips, intoxicate the brain, intoxicate the mind. If you drink a tiny little sip, you're drunk on knowledge because you think you know enough when you don't. So it has made you, it has inebriated you in the sense that you think you have what you need. You think you're going to meet the requirements on a tiny little thimbleful of knowledge. And what the poet is saying in this beautiful poetry about the fount of knowledge is, when you actually drink a ton from it and you have all the info and requirements that you need, then you'll be re-sobered. You will become sober after being intoxicated on the tiny little sip that you took that you thought was enough. So don't go half-assed with knowledge. Go all the way into it if you're going to do it at all. Because if you go a tiny little bit, you're going to be a drunken retard, stomping around thinking you know what you're talking about, and you're just a fool. But if you take it all in, the totality of the entire world view changing knowledge, then you're going to be healed. You're going to become sobered. You're going to be out of mind control. You're going to be out of the reach of the cults of this world. And then you're going to be actually, you're going to put skin in the game. You're not going to just be a chronic complainer, and you're going to be actually taking steps toward your own self-improvement and the improvement of our entire world. And that's what this whole thing is all about. And Fred, I just want to say thank you not only for, doing the interview, but for doing that work, both within yourself and externally in the world. People like you are an example of what we need more of. More content creators that understand natural law and are putting that out into the world. That's what the entire dynamic that's going to change the nature of human life on this planet, if it is to be done, is ultimately all about. So I thank you for doing that, as I do all the creators on the One
Yeah.
Great Work Network and the other people who are discussing these very important dynamics.
Yeah, and I would add it's to raise children into natural law. This is the next step there.
That's
And this,
exactly it.
yeah, and thank you
Conscious
everyone.
parenting, it could be the most powerful force
Hmm.
as a driving factor of the positive change in our world. If you're teaching young people natural law and objective morality, and to grow up to lead a purpose-driven life and do the one great work, you're doing more than anybody possibly could. That's more than anybody could possibly ask for. So
Yeah,
that's a
and
big
children are
dynamic.
smarter. Children are
Yep.
smarter to understand these things than adult.
Yep. Then we give them credit for. That's exactly right. No doubt about it.
Yep, they understand very well the
Absolutely.
difference between force and violence. They can understand it.
That's right. We
Yeah.
just got to not subject them to the brainwashing signal that most of us were subjected to in our youth. We protect our children like that, they're going to become powerful forces for good, uh, having been taught the right things under conscious parenting. It's one of the things I hope to see most in the world. I think we have a shot if things go in that direction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So thank you everyone for joining in. I've seen a lot of names there. Um, thank you for being there. And Mark, thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're busy
Absolutely.
and we're both busy, but we made it, and I'm very proud to have you once again on the LIBERcast. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you. Keep going, my friend. Never give up.
Oh no, we're not. So
Have a have a great
have a
one.
good have a good have a good day, people, and see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye.